go live. And 1, 2, 3, 4, going live. You're live, and we are live. Hello, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got another great Native American myths and legends. We are on like 28, believe it or not. And I got my co-host David Null with our special guest Linda Brooks. Thank you for coming.
Hello, how are you tonight?
Well, yeah. She kind of just froze up there a little bit. I was like, oh no. You're having a little storm there, so we're not worried.
Did I freeze? Yeah. Did I freeze up again?
Yeah, a little bit. You're
yeah, my internet connection's unstable. You can blame it on the weather. Mother Nature is partying out here at my house.
Ah, yes. Well, it's the spring thing, and you know, that's the way it goes when it's spring. Here we got winter, and spring will be on the way in another month or two. After that big snowstorm, I don't know if everybody caught that, but I made a few shorts on the Robert V channel. If you want to check that out, you can. I got 2 little shorts about how deep the snow was here. It buried the cars and buried the trucks. Took me a good day and a half to dig out. Yeah, don't want to do that again too often. So trust me, it's one of those things. But anyhow,
I called my brother the other day on his birthday, and I said, "How you doing?" He said, "It's like hell. It's horrible." And I said, "What's wrong?" And he goes, "There's an inch of snow on the ground, and I was supposed to play golf today." He was not a happy camper. He's in Ohio. Oh. And I was like, "An inch of snow? Really? Well, happy birthday anyway."
Snow. Yeah, and most people are calling me up and saying, "Well, I'm planting this," and my buddy calls me from Wisconsin. He says that he's getting ready to mow the lawn this weekend, and I'm thinking, oh geez. But anyway, we got people dropping in. I'm sure that they're all we're over at Ryder Lee's, and if you haven't checked out Ryder Lee's, he had a great show on tonight about JFK and the Sapir film or whatever. I'm tongue-tied, but anyway, go check him out. We got Max Vision in the house. Thanks, Max, for coming. We got Jules, and we got Big Al, who's on the road somewhere where did he say? I don't know. He said he was from somewhere. I don't know where he is tonight, but we got Susie Q and Doug Stearns in the house. Delaney Pearl Jones, high vibes and cosmic hugs to everybody. So with that, we're going to get started because everybody else will be dropping in shortly. And tonight I got good stuff for you. I'll start out because I got some of the history, and tonight we're going to do the guy in the background, Crazy Horse. So I didn't pull that up yet. I thought I did, but I didn't. And I got to pull it up so I can do this. And then I can start out with one. Crazy Horse history. Yes, Crazy Horse history is crazy, everyone. Crazy. There wasn't, believe it or not, it didn't seem like a whole lot. I got on the Crazy Horse thing the other day because I was reading about him, and he was, his name was, they called him Curly when he was younger. Because he had curly hair. Okay, and I think that should do it. Now, I had a whole bunch of pages in a book that I was going to read out of, but this said pretty much the same stuff, and so I copied it up and put it on the screen so you guys could all see it, which will be nice because it's nice to follow along. Plus, I got some pictures. Okay, Crazy Horse was born in the Black Hills of South Dakota. In 1841, the son of Ogallala Sioux shaman, also named Crazy Horse, and his wife, a member of the Brule Sioux. Crazy Horse had lighter complexion and hair than others in his tribe, with prodigious curls. Boys were traditionally not permanently named until they had an experience that earned them a name. So Crazy Horse was called Curly Hair. and a light-haired boy as a child. As an adolescent, Crazy Horse earned the name His Horse Looking, but the name that was more commonly known as Curly until 1858, when, following a battle with Arapaho warriors, he was given his father's name, while his father took the name Worm. Crazy Horse's vision quest. Crazy Horse was not a traditionalist with regard to his tribe customs, shrugging off many of the traditions and rituals that the Sioux practiced. Crazy Horse was not a traditionalist with regard to his tribe's customs, shrugging off many of the traditions and rituals that the Sioux practiced. In 1854, Crazy Horse rode off into the prairies for his vision quest, purposely ignoring the required rituals. Fasting for 2 days, Crazy Horse had a vision of an adorned horseman who directed him to present himself in the same way, with no more than one feather and never a war bonnet. He was also told to toss dust over his horse before entering battle and to take a stone or place a stone behind his ear and directed to never take anything for himself. Crazy Horse followed these instructions until his death. General William Tecumseh Sherman. In 1866, the discovery of gold along the Bozeman Trail in Montana spurred General William Tecumseh Sherman to build a number of forts in Sioux territory. Under the command of Captain William Fetterman, a troop clashed with Sioux and Cheyenne warriors after Crazy Horse acted as a decoy to lead the 80 white soldiers to their death in an ambush. The soldiers' bodies were hacked up to send a message to Sherman. In 1867, Crazy Horse took part in the attack on a small fort. Shortly after, Sherman tortured the native prairie lands to meet with leaders and seek peace. By 1868, soldiers were pulled out of the disputed forts and a treaty was signed and gave the native populations ownership of the Black Hills area west of Missouri and land in Wyoming. I think they're talking of the river. No whites would be allowed to enter that territory until under threat of arrest. Crazy Horse, however, ensued the treaty signing and preferring to conduct raids on enemy tribes. Black Buffalo Woman. Black Buffalo Woman was Crazy Horse's first love. They met in 1857, but she married a man named No Water while Crazy Horse was on a raid. Talk about a woman getting stolen, huh? Crazy Horse continued to pay her attention and in 1868 eloped with her while No Water was on a hunting party. See, even back in the day, they were doing hanky-panky. He and Black Buffalo Woman spent one night together before No Water took back his wife, shooting Crazy Horse in the nose and breaking his jaw. Despite fears of violence between villages, the two men came to a truce. Crazy Horse insisted that Black Buffalo Woman shouldn't be punished for fleeing and received a horse from No Water in compensation for the injury. Crazy Horse eventually married Black Shawl, who died of tuberculosis, and later a half Cheyenne, half French woman named Nellie Larby. Black Buffalo Woman's fourth child, a girl, was a light-skinned baby suspected of being the result of her night with Crazy Horse. General George Armstrong Custer. As the railroads expanded west, tensions rose between Native Americans and soldiers. In 1872, Crazy Horse took part in a raid with Sitting Bull against 400 soldiers, where his horse was shot out beneath him after he made a reckless dash ahead to meet the U.S. Army. In 1873, George Armstrong Custer crossed into Sioux territory somewhere along the Yellowstone River. Crazy Horse encountered Custer for the first time, coming up a contingent of napping soldiers. The Sioux attempted to steal their horses but failed, and Crazy Horse retreated after a scuffle. Okay, what happened? Oh, okay, hang on. What happened at Custer's last stand? Custer's troops made their way back to the Black Hole Hills in search of gold, violating treaties while also ushering in civilian miners who outnumbered the native population. Battle of Rosebud. By 1876, large numbers of tribes gathered near the Little Bighorn River in Montana to join Sitting Bull. General George Crook, who had recently raided a village that was wrongly claimed to be Crazy Horse's, attempted to attack. But Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull led forces to push back Crook in what is called the Battle of Rosebud. Battle of the Little Bighorn. 1 week later, George Custer entered into battle at Little Bighorn after refusing the advice of the native guides who assured him he would lose the confrontation. 1 week later, General Custer entered into the battle of Little Bighorn. After refusing the advice of the native guides who assured him he would lose the confrontation, Crazy Horse led as many as 1,000 warriors to flank Custer's forces and help seal the general's disastrous defeat and death at the Battle of the Little Bighorn, also known as Custer's last stand. What really happened? Crazy Horse's surrender. Crazy Horse traveled to Big Butte to harass white miners in the Black Hills, while the Sioux faced continued hostilities from General Crook during a harsh winter that decimated the tribe. Sensing the tribe's struggle for survival, Colonel Nelson A. Miles tried to strike a deal with Crazy Horse, promising to help the Sioux and treat them fairly. When Crazy Horse sent emissaries to discuss the deal, soldiers shot and killed several, and Crazy Horse fled. Miles repeatedly attacked Crazy Horse's encampment until winter weather prevented action. Encapsulated by the winter, Crazy Horse negotiated with Lieutenant Philo Clark, who offered the starving Sioux their own reservation in exchange for their surrender. Crazy Horse agreed. Crazy Horse's arrest. During negotiations, Crazy Horse found trouble with both the army and his fellow tribesmen. Clark tried to convince him to go to Washington, but Crazy Horse refused, furthering the army's belief that Crazy Horse was too unreliable for negotiation. Some of the Sioux were agitating with others following a rumor that Crazy Horse had found favor with the white people who planned to install him as a leader of all the Sioux. Tensions arose as the army sought Crazy Horse's help in their conflict against the Nez Perce natives. During these meetings, an interpreter claimed Crazy Horse had promised he would not stop fighting until all white men were killed, though Crazy Horse had not said that. Some Sioux warriors signed on with the army to fight the Nez Perce warriors disguised. Crazy Horse threatened to leave negotiations and was soon after arrested. Crazy Horse's death. Returning to camp the next day, Crazy Horse requested to talk to military leaders, but was led to a cell instead. Realizing the betrayal, Crazy Horse struggled. An old friend, Little Big Man, worked for the army as a policeman and attempted to restrain Crazy Horse, who pulled a concealed knife on him. Trying to prevent Crazy Horse from stabbing Little Big Man, a soldier shoved a bayonet into Crazy Horse's abdomen, piercing his kidneys. Crazy Horse collapsed and was moved to an office where he refused a cot. Only his father was allowed to visit. Crazy Horse died at some point later on that night on September 6, 1877, at the age of 35. Lying on the bare floor in Fort Robinson, Nebraska, his body was taken away by the Sioux and buried in an unknown location near a creek called Wounded Knee. Crazy Horse Memorial. Crazy Horse is remembered for his courage, leadership, and his tendency of spirit in the face of near impossible odds. His legacy is celebrated in the Crazy Horse Memorial, an uncompleted monumental sculpture located in the Black Hills, not far from Mount Rushmore. Started in 1948 by sculptor, Krasinski, who also worked on Mount Rushmore. The Crazy Horse Memorial would be the largest sculpture in the world when completed. Operated by the nonprofit Crazy Horse Memorial Foundation, sculpture grounds are open to the public and reportedly receive more than 1 million visitors a year. And there's a picture of Crazy Horse. Apparently, after I read everything, he didn't take many pictures. Very few pictures of Crazy Horse. He didn't like his picture taken. And this is probably one of the best frontal faces, tin photograph of Great Lakota Patriot. Crazy Horse. There is his picture right there. About as good as you're going to get out of him. There's one feather in his hair too. Okay. This is pretty much the same thing. Biography. Let's see, in here, he was born in 1842 near the present day city of Rapid City, South Dakota. Curly, as he was as a son of an Ogallala medicine man and his Brule wife, the sister Spotted Tail. By the time he was 12, he had killed a buffalo. And this is kind of interesting, though. He had killed a buffalo and received his own horse. His father gave him his own name, Crazy Horse. While living in, and remember, his father took the name Worm. I didn't know you could give up your name. That's something kind of different. While living with his uncle, Spotted Tail, Crazy Horse watched a group of soldiers attack Sioux leaders who were trying to mediate a dispute. Spotted Tail then led the group of warriors to attack the soldiers. Sometime later, Crazy Horse returned from a buffalo hunt to find the village burned to the ground and 86 people dead. Finding a few survivors, Crazy Horse was told that the U.S. cavalry had attacked his village. See, this is where things go badly. You know, your village gets attacked and yet they kill all your family and friends and stuff. I'd be pissed off too. While still young, Crazy Horse went on a vision quest. We read that before. He had a rider in a storm on horseback with long unbraided hair, a small stone in his ear, zigzag lightning decorating his cheek, and a hail dotting his body. The storm faded and a red-black hawk flew over the rider's head. His father interpreted the dream as a sign of his son's future greatness in battle. Crazy Horse adopted the costume as his war dress. During Red Cloud's War in 1866 and 1868, Crazy Horse joined in raids against white settlements and forts in Wyoming. When the Treaty of Fort Laramie was signed in 1868 and the Army agreed to abandon its posts along the Bozeman Trail, Red Cloud and Spotted Tail settled on reservation lands. Crazy Horse became the war chief of the Ogallalas. He was only 24 years old. Okay, we know about this. Okay, Crazy Horse learned in 1874 that General Custer had led an expedition to the Sacred Black Hills and found gold at French Creek. I don't know where French Creek is. Prospectors and speculators swarmed into Sioux land, ignoring the fact that the land had been guaranteed to the Dakota by the Fort Laramie Treaty. To ensure the safety of the white travelers, the government issued an order requiring that the Sioux bands be required to stay on the Great Sioux Reservation. Crazy Horse and his followers ignored the order, and the Army organized a campaign against them. On the upper Rosebud Creek in southern Montana, General George Crook's army of 1,300 attacked 1,200 warriors led by Crazy Horse. Wow. That was quite an even fight. Crazy Horse had over the years become a daring military strategist, adept in the art of decoying tactics. His fleeting and assaulting techniques baffled Crook, who withdrew. Crazy Horses now joined with Sitting Bull and Gall at the Bighorn River in Montana. And of course, we know that Custer was there. When Custer attacked on June 25th, 1876, Crazy Horse led his warriors against Custer's men from the north and the west, while Gall charged Custer from the south and east. Custer's forces included Custer himself, was completely destroyed. After the battle, the Sioux encampment split up with Sitting Bull heading to Canada and Crazy Horse and his followers traveling back to the Rosebud River. However, despite winning several battles, Crazy Horse's band could not win the war. Intense harassment by the military leaders and loss of their food source, the buffalo finally forced Crazy Horse and his followers to surrender on May 6, 1877 at Fort Robinson in northwest Nebraska. Okay, what else do I got here? Oh, we got to go back. And I got some pictures for you. This is the Crazy Horse, what you call it, monument they got going on. If you guys haven't been out there, I don't know, you guys ever been out that way?
Yeah, I was out there about 1998 or 9. We saw it from a distance, but literally didn't have time to stop and see it up close. And in the last 20 some years, they've done a lot more to the monument as well.
Oh yeah, look at that. You know how big that is? Look, here's a truck right there. This
Yep.
thing is huge. It is really huge.
Is that out in South Dakota?
Yes.
Yeah,
Just
I
right.
haven't been up that way yet. I've been across most of the United States. That's one area I haven't traveled to yet.
Yeah, that's about as much as I got from that. So
I
there
gotta
we go.
say that the Black Hills are definitely different. I've been up and down the Appalachians. I've been in the Ozarks, been out west, in the Sierra Nevada and all that. But the Black Hills, there is something ancient about them. I don't know what.
Mhm. Yeah, it's pretty cool out there. I mean, I've been to Mount Rushmore. I didn't go to the Crazy Horse thing, but I'm hoping to go back someday.
Yeah, I would like to go back.
Yes, maybe this summer. Good trip, road trip.
One of the things that kind of ticks me off is that, the white man invades literally after a treaty, the Black Hills. Stay out. They're sacred to us. Don't come in. Okay, here you go. Sign your John Henry. And then so when the whites go in and infringe upon that, they don't tell the whites to get out.
Yeah. It's one rule, and that's for not you.
I mean, it continues to be shocking in that as that was written, it's like, well, the white man come in and, they had to tell them Indians to settle down, hang on. And folks don't really realize and understand just how indignant the native peoples felt. I mean, Crazy Horse, he's like, what? You said we could have this. You said it was sacred. Now you let them in. I mean, that would tick off just about anybody.
Yeah, that at the end of the ages, like I was telling Robert before, how we went from the Paleolithic period to the Archaic to the Woodland to the Mississippi period. They forced them to become civilized in order to have rights and access to their land. It was basically like, do what we say, or you're not going to be able to live here. And go ahead.
They had to be assimilated like the Borg.
Exactly. And they lost, so much of their natural heritage, which I'm from Dragon Canoe, and I've read a lot about him, and he was considered the true American Indian hero because in 1776, he stood up against everything they were trying to do. And he saw that, they took 20 million acres of land from the Cherokee, and in today's price, what they paid for it was like 15 cents an acre they gave them. And the Indians, the Cherokee didn't even understand exactly. They thought they were signing just grazing rights over. They didn't even understand they were giving their land away. Plus, they thought the money they were receiving was in repayment for all the things that had been done for them. They thought it was like damage payment for everything that they had suffered. So in the end of they didn't even realize they just gave away their homeland and they were going to be moved somewhere else. But Dragon Canoe, he kind of did. He kind of understood there was some trickery going on. And for 20 long years, I mean, he fought. He actually he joined together so many different other tribes. I was trying to remember. There was like so many other tribes of Indians that came together with him and decided to fight and to try to stand their ground with them. So he carried, it was Chickasaws, Creeks, the Chickamauga Cherokees, the Delaware Shawnees. They all came together, and that, you know, they did fight at the Battle of the Bluffs, which was like the last big fight. But in the end of the Battle of the Bluffs, the government kind of gave in and gave the Cherokee, the Eastern Band of Cherokee, which my family's from, what they kind of wanted, because they were scared to death. They didn't want to fight the Cherokee anymore. The Cherokee had like made a mark, and it was all due to Dragon Canoe, because he stood up and said, you guys, I don't care what they're telling you, they're still going to do something to us. There's still going to be bloodshed. We're still going to lose our lives. And that's absolutely what they did to them. They told them they were, you know, took their land, made them move. They didn't understand the treaties, and then they still ended up getting slaughtered and massacred and forced to not live the way they wanted to. But in this treaty that he did, they could keep their native culture. They didn't have to switch anything. They were allowed to live the way that they had always lived. So, you know, go ahead, David.
What time period?
It was from 1776 to like 1796. It was like 20 years that they fought.
No, but I mean, but he was born.
He was born in 1742, I think. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
was from primarily where?
He was from, ended up settling in the Tennessee area, but his family was originally from further up north. I know his mom was a Natchez and his dad was a Nisapig. They were adopted into the Cherokee clan. And so they were above Tennessee where they lived, I think Virginia area. And then as everything started to happen, you know, they were taking Kentucky from them, part of Middle Tennessee. He rounded up Cherokees that refused to submit, and they moved down to the Tennessee, around the Tennessee River, which is now called the Chickamauga Creek. They became the lower river, like the lower river people. And from my understanding, they're deemed to be like one of the most important parts of the tribes of the Cherokee, like those lower river people, because they kept the culture alive. They kept everything alive and thriving until they got the government to bend. After he died, there was 2 more years of fighting, which was carried on. And then it was John, I forget his name right now. It was John somebody, I just went out of my head. He's actually the one that signed with them to end the Cherokee Wars, is what they called it. It was the Treaty of Tellico Blockhouse. And it says the American government didn't want it, John Watts, that was his name, John Watts, that they didn't want another war with the Cherokee because it had been so damaging, and the Cherokee had revived their natural culture. They had grew strong again. And through the treaty negotiations, the legal challenges that they had, they resisted the United States government's Indian removal policy until 1838, and resisted and kept resisting until they got what they wanted and ended up getting setting up the Eastern Band of Cherokee, you know, up in North Carolina. So yeah, it was a long, hard road.
Yeah. Wow. Nina says that the Black Hills is the womb of Mother Earth and is the location of many vision quests. So that's why the Black Hills are important.
Nice.
Nina knows her stuff too. By gosh, she does.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I think we can all learn a few things. But from her, she's right on top of that stuff. But anyway, yeah, you know, you're go ahead, Dave.
Linda, have you done any research as to what happened to the treaties and until the Trail of Tears kind of thing? So that was in the late 1700s, 1778-ish.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yes.
So did those what happened? You know, everything was copacetic for a while, I'm assuming, but then when the Trail of Tears began, were they exempt from it, or were they swept out as well?
They just refused to abide by it. Grandfather was like an outlaw on the run. All the people that went with him, they were basically outlaws. The Akatani, I can't say their name. They did get some kind of special treatment because they accepted to abide by a rule that it fell outside of the Trail of Tears, and they got their own section of land. And they kind of did decide to be civilized. They let the Moravians come in and start teaching things, and so they were considered civilized. But Dragon Canoe was not going to have it. Him and the people because the majority of the Cherokee didn't want to abide by this at all. They got tricked. They were like, I think it was like 12 representatives snuck out and went to the treaty meeting that weren't even authorized and signed all the paperwork. And they didn't even represent the majority of the Cherokee. So they told them, you got 2 years after the treaty was signed, you've got 2 years to move. And then when they weren't ready within the 2 years, they were going to force them out into the cold and everything else. And it wasn't John Watts, it was another John, went to Martin Van Buren. It's wintertime. Can you give our people like until the spring and let us get prepared? And we'll be promised to 16,000 of them went along the Trail of Tears, and 4,000 of them died. But that whole time when that happened, Dragon Canoe said, we're not doing this. Like, who's with me? And like a whole bunch of Cherokee. I mean, it was close. I think it was close to 16,000. It was like 14,000 something went with him. So basically half the tribe, they went with him, and they were all on the run, moving from place to place in the mountains, moving to the hills, hiding out, they were staging back, like stakeouts. They would go hide behind the encampments. And I know one famous one was in Shallow Fort, I believe. They went to the fort, and two Indians, and drew out the people, drew the soldiers out. And when they did, the other ones came from around back and went inside and kind of like stole all kinds of supplies and equipment and horses, and and they ended up killing like 5 of the soldiers. But there's a lot of famous battles that he went through. But he was determined. He was like, we're not going to lose our culture. And they didn't. They ended up getting the treaty. When they got the treaty, it says that that they were allowed to keep their national culture, and it helped them to grow strong. And that's why they haven't lost all the knowledge that they had today. Because if you go to Cherokee, North Carolina, and visit there, it's amazing. I mean, you can basically walk into like an old Cherokee town and see all their ways and traditions. So I'm really proud to be from his bloodline. I like it when Sherman came in my store and who my grandfather was, like that I was Chickamauga Cherokee. He said, you need to check into them because they're a proud people, and you're very it's an honor to be from that tribe. And when I started checking into them and doing my ancestry, I was like shocked and awed. I was like, wow, they really like fought against everything to try to maintain their lifestyle and what they believed in. So, but I don't know anything else about the other treaties. I do know there were more treaties, David, but I could tell you some stuff about them, but I'd have to have it like before me because I don't remember all the details.
Yeah, well, that's all right. It just proves that the Native folks have been plundered upon, and I'm sorry to the Black community, but they lived here. This was their home, and the Black folk were brought over here as slaves. So, but the Native folks just got decimated. Now, one of the things, I went to several retreats sponsored by Native Americans in Tennessee, and also the Methodist Church. And to hear some of these old folks talk about how the Methodist Church used to bind them, slap them, tape their mouths shut, gag them and things, if they spoke anything other than English, ever. They were beaten, they were separated, it was horrible, you know. And it wasn't that the United States was forcing it, but in the name of the church, you know, in this case, it was the Methodist. I was like, why do you people still, you know, is this sort of like oh, what is that condition where you get, you know, beat up and you have to go back, you know, that syndrome. And I said, you know, I wouldn't have, if I knew that this church had done these things to my parents and grandparents and others, I couldn't go to that church. I'm sorry. How do you guys rectify? Well, we believe in God. Yeah, but you're believing in God in the church that literally, you know, terrorized you and your culture.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have to understand that we believe in God and we believe in forgiveness. And I was like, okay, I get that, but still, I don't think I would patronize the same church because they never did give reparations to the Native folk over that.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere in Canada, somewhere in the United States, but it all had to do, in this particular instance, was with the Methodist Church. And I was just appalled.
Yeah. Well, that's like, you know, the Cherokee didn't have an alphabet. They had a language,
Yep.
but they didn't, you know, most of the Native Americans, when they came over on the like the strait over there and between Siberia and Alaska, they really didn't have like a formed language amongst them. But, you know, as they progress and out into different tribes and gain names for the one huge tribe that came across, and then they branched out and got names, they started developing their own language. And, you know, Sequoia had the insight, hold on a second, in the 19th century, like it was 18 today, but he decided when all this was going on, he realized that his people lose their language if this progressed because they were being forced to learn English. And so he actually, with all the sounds that they had, came up to represent those sounds and started teaching the Cherokee those alphabet that went with that sound, so they could write to each other in their alphabet, and they could also help keep their language alive so that they wouldn't lose that. Because, you know, the Cherokee language almost went extinct. I mean, there's not very many people now that can speak true Cherokee language. Like I go on Cherokee Nation right now every day. They have a word of the day and they have sentences, and then there's a few classes you can take. And it is a kind of a difficult language to learn, but it's important, you know, not to let those languages die because they belong to a group of people, you know. So you have to just pay attention to those things. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible to think. I mean, imagine if, let's say, another country comes in right now and would tell all of us, you got to do things this way and that way, and you got to learn how to speak our language, and you can never speak your language again. You know, imagine how you would feel if that happened within you. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, and see, that's the thing too, is the different languages, and they're all, I don't know how similar, you know, they are, but as you know, I've been reading, you know, earlier in the series, is that like the Western, you know, the Indians from California, they had some more technology settings, and they had different ways. They also had some facial hair versus the Indians out on the East Coast. And it would be interesting to, you know, like you were talking about their signs and symbols or their language or written those stuff, you know, and I was telling you earlier, we're doing that series on Atlantis. And I wonder how many of those signs and symbols would match up to, like, say, Egyptian or Greek symbols of some sort, or closely resemble them.
Yeah, that would be something to look into. Yeah, absolutely. You know, just like with all of their, like I was talking about, all their symbols on all their clothing and their, you know, weapons and everything that is very similar to all the symbols that we see in so many other cultures, tribes, and areas of the world. So it makes you, realize there was probably a centralized couple of communities, and they all had using the same stuff, and then whatever happened started spreading out all over the place, and they carried those things with them. So
yep. And that's okay. So Nina says Dakota, Lakota are very, very similar. We all can speak and understand each other. So I don't know if that means anything, but that is kind of interesting. I suppose like all those on the East Coast, they may have had a similar language. Do you know anything about that? I mean, if their language, I suppose you haven't looked into that. I mean, it's hard enough to speak one.
yeah,
They had to learn different because they had to trade.
I had to trade, absolutely.
But here's one thing that a lot of folks don't really get at some point, is that there was there was very little conversation. I mean, even today in talking with, folks, if they're not really conversationalists, you got to kind of drag it out of them to have a conversation. So things were traded like with hand signs and stuff, but also, and I want to say it's over in India and the islands and stuff, and Indonesia and that, they have a pidgin language. And also the blacks had a pidgin, they called it pidge for short. I think in South Carolina, there's is it South Carolina? They've got some of those natives that still speak it. So my point is they had a pidge language, a slang between them, but it wasn't an official language.
Yeah.
Also, I wanted to point out that the Chief Van House, which is in Georgia, was built between 1804 and 1806 by the Cherokee leader James Van. It's called the Showplace of the Cherokee Nation. It's located in Murray County on the outskirts of Chatsworth in northwest Georgia. And I kind of go by there every time I go north, if I go that far north. But here's the thing, that the Cherokee had their own constitution.
Yes.
And that the American Constitution was sort of, they plagiarized it, okay? And so the Cherokee, especially in Georgia, North Carolina, up in there, were very instrumental in actually how the United States came to be, in my humble opinion.
That's true. They did. They copied off. They pretty much plagiarized the Cherokee's Constitution.
Well, there are people who came over from all over the place, right? And some of these folks never knew how to build a log cabin or survive in the native, Americas. And so what's interesting to me, that, the pioneers came over, some of them lived with the Cherokee and all other nations when allowed to. But the interesting part also is that, so they learned everything they could from the natives and then got rid of them.
Yep, that's absolutely what they did. They did.
Wow.
Language you're talking about, they speak it. It's like a Creole.
Yep.
Louisiana has it as well. So does the Haitians, but it's in Sea Island, South Carolina, down that way. There's the basket weavers, and I always get the word wrong. I can't ever say it. They speak their own language too, and it's still alive and thriving, like down in Charleston and Beaufort Island and all areas down in there. They still have like a separate language. There's actually, I don't know if many people know this, but down in Charleston, there's a go to, and it's Brook Green Gardens, not Charleston, I'm sorry, and and it's down past Myrtle Beach and Murrells Inlet, Pawleys Island area. Brick Green Gardens down there was owned by the Huntingtons, and they own Huntington Beach State. It's like a lot of land they own. So they had a plantation that grew rice, and they closed it down, turned it into a museum, dedicated all the land to the state there's actually a castle built on Huntington Beach that's called Atalaya Castle that they let the Army come in and use during the war for a while. But where that plantation is and all the rice paddy waterways, if you go down to the end of their part and to the other creeks, there's a whole island there that people live on, that they were the original slaves that came over growing the rice. And it's the same families that still live there, own language. And the only way to get there is by boat. So they take a boat over to the mainland and supplies, and then they go back. They're their own little like tribal enclosed community right there in South Carolina. Allow outsiders to like really move in. It's like their own little community. So it's pretty cool. I just discovered that when I went down there and visited last summer.
Wow. Let's see. Nina said when she went to China, remember how I was saying about the West Coast, East Coast type thing? She says, when I went to China, there was a more advanced Mandarin language. Our connection there couldn't understand the more advanced one. So there you go. So it may be similar to Chinese in some way. I don't know.
The Pidgin language? Is that what she's talking about?
No, the Dakota language.
The total language. Oh, okay.
Dakota
Yeah.
language.
Yeah.
Well, think about how much. Now I was born in 52, and the slang that was brought in and left over from World War II and before was around when I was a kid. Now nobody uses that slang, and fat is spelled with a PH. I mean, there's all these other things linguistically that, what's our language going to look like in another 20 years? Because people can't spell now,
Well, you got the whole urban dictionary now that's got all the slang in it that's considered actual word. And it's kind of crazy.
And people talking emojis. I can't. They can speak more with emojis, and it takes me like an hour to find just one. But LOL.
Yeah. Well,
the teenagers, you better know your emojis, because I'm telling you what, you can look up. There'd be some naughty stuff they're writing to each other. If you don't know what those emojis mean, you're just clueless.
Yeah,
I mean,
you are, and that's sort of my point. So language, what would be traditional anymore? You know what I mean? There are folks who try to keep English civilized, and then people just keep wanting to murder it and delete words and add new ones. And like, for example, on one night I was speaking about the constellation Orion. Now nobody knew what I was talking about, and somebody in the chat put Orion, Orion.
I don't know what that
So
means.
they said, do you mean Orion? And then, they spelled it out, and I was like, no, it's pronounced Orion, damn it. No, it's Orion. All of us new folks now, and we're all it's Orion. Oh, holy crap.
Goodness.
So,
well, David, that's just a sign of the times. Like, the language has changed so much. You look, I've looked way back into language, and language used to be basically just symbols. There weren't what there is right now, where we've actually made individual letters. Like, the English language is completely different from, when I was learning French, I learned it. And then all of a sudden, when I got in college, I decided to do Spanish. And I was like, wow, I can learn Spanish easy because it's so close to French. our languages. So I'm sure those
And
people were
Italian.
like, what the heck are these people doing over here with this English language? It's nothing like what we speak at all. So it's gonna progress again. It's just gonna keep progressing. And when we're long gone, they're gonna probably have a language that if we came back, if we could come back, we'd be like, no, well, I don't understand that. So
Well, yeah, you're right. And you know, if it keeps going the way it is, they'll be all doing it grunts. Yeah.
You'll just
Yeah.
have little flashcards with emojis.
Yeah, there you go. That too. And you know, we kind of leave out some of this stuff because Scotty Boy says Hawaii has the new high. I'm probably mispronouncing it. New Hawaii. Only pure Hawaiians are allowed to go on the island, the farthest island north. I did not know that.
wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he also talks about must have been something about the horses there, which I kind of get. They have old trucks with some modern comforts. He says that they used to and David, you'll probably remember this in some way or another. We used to buy horses from them. And they didn't need trailers. Those horses would jump up into the back of the trucks. I do remember that. I am old enough to remember that kind of stuff where they didn't have trailers. They would put up this rack around the bed of the truck, you know, like a little rack fence. They put the tailgate down and you bring your horse up there and you jump up in there and you shut the tailgate. And there you go. Your horse is in the thing. You tie him up and he's in the back of your pickup. They didn't even need a trailer.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know,
modern, I can't say that word, modernization.
yes.
That's what it's all about right now. And spending money on things you don't need.
Yeah, so
You
much.
could just do it the old way.
You know what? I gotta say though that I talked with a lot of folks over the years, like, you know, you're using plastic bags. How can you be a Native American and use plastic bags? I just want to know your position on this, right? Because they're convenient and they're easy to use. And, you know, we can buy 1,000 of them for $1, you know. Very pragmatic. Well, what about saving the earth? And they're like, you think these 20 vendors here at this powwow giving out a couple of plastic bags is really going to affect what's going on the planet? You know, and I was like, okay, point taken. You know, besides that, they said, if we'd have had plastic, we'd have used it. You know, so it's using what you got. And I'm finding out that because there's so many strange things that are new in these last 15, 20 years, manufactured otherwise, and now you can get your own laser printer and print up something that you design yourself. So back in the day, we didn't have that kind of stuff, you know. But what does that mean? It means people are being ingenious little devices that they're making out of leftover stuff. Now there's a big kick on, you know, wear your clothes for a while, then send them back in and buy, you know, just you're renting clothes now. And I'm like, what? You know, oh, don't buy anymore because we don't want to produce anymore on the planet. And so, well, then go to Goodwill. I mean, but they're renting clothes. And I'm like, oh, because it's a Gucci and it's a, oh, holy mackerel. So not only are the times are changing, but people's attitudes along with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's, I'm trying to find this word. It's still rolled around in my head, but ingenious little devices that they're coming up with to be less of a stress on the environment. And I'm really pleased. There's a guy out there that put a carburetor for a lawnmower on a on a Ford Maverick.
I seen that one.
Did you?
Yes.
And, you know, and he tuned it up and everything. He goes, I'm not saying that I, you know, but, you know, we always thought it had to have at least a 2-barrel. It was a 302, but to the point though, what? So people are finding ingenious ways of tinkering with stuff. And I think that's great. And they're using what's around them, junk cars, junk this, and they're making stuff. And I think that's great. Ingenuity.
Absolutely. If we could start repurposing more of the trash that we have on this earth, you know, I mean, things would be a lot better. I mean, instead of making new things, try to figure out how to use the old things that we have in another way that would help us. That's absolutely one of my goals to help
That's
people do
why
that.
I've got all this junk around my house for the last 40 years. I'm going to reuse this.
That's right. That's me. I don't throw anything away unless it's really crap, you know?
Mhm.
You know what though? I've got a lot of aluminum that has like been down in the woods, and it was in boxes and things that got growed over with vines. And when my dear friend was here a couple of weeks ago, he pulled out all them cans for me. And I've got all these cans that last time I sold any was like 22 cents a pound. The going rate for aluminum right now, because there's an aluminum shortage and issues in America, they're now between 65 and 72 cents a pound.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yep.
For aluminum cans.
Yep. I'll tell you, when I was a single mom for a long time, I had a pretty decent job, but I have 4 kids. I had a house payment, and, you know, my brother drank a lot, and so did his friends. And, you know, I had other friends that drank, and I was like, guys, save your cans. And I lie you not, I could almost completely make my house payment on going and collecting the aluminum cans. I have barrels and barrels every month. And because they're all construction workers, you know, construction workers and hard laborers, and they come home and, you know, meet up together after work. And, you know, there's a couple of cases beer probably a night, you know. So it's like, but I couldn't believe it. Somebody suggested that you look into taking those aluminum cans and seeing what you can get for them. And yard, I was like, dang, they're how much can I get? So I'd take several truckloads of and turn them in. So recycling, there's some value to that.
There is.
There's been some times when I was down and out and didn't know about whether or not I was going to have anything to eat. And between going in, I went back to school in '87. And during that time, I didn't have a job because I was going to school for full time. And what little bit of grant money I got didn't really cover everything. So one thing I could do was collect cans. So I went around to some of the bars that people weren't, later on, they just, you know, saved their own cans. But so I found people that drank a lot of beer, and I said, look, I'll come get them. Here's a bag. Call me when you got it, you know, and I'll come by and pick them up. And people were kind enough to give me food and feed me, but they also knew the value for me of being able to collect the cans as a job to get me by. So, you know, I had people all the time like, look, I'll save your aluminum for you, but you got to be here every Tuesday or something when the garbage comes. Okay.
Yeah. I remember being a kid. I mean, I'm sure you did. They used to, in North Carolina, they've stopped doing this now, but we used to get money and stuff. I had in our neighborhood, like I would go around and save us glass bottles because so we could take them and trade them for candy and stuff at the store. I mean, you know, you take them up there and it's a bottle, and you could buy candy was like 2 for a penny or a penny a piece. So you could take you a few bottles and get you a whole little brown bag. And I think that was instilled with me from my grandparents, because my great grandparents' farm, they were used to saving everything, because if something broke down, something broke on the tractor one time, and my great grandpa was like, hold up. And he went to another old tractor and out in a building where he had some scraps, and he was just pulling stuff out. And then he finagled something together. He had like a welding thing and blacksmith, and he just made a whole new piece. And I'm like, you know, I remember him doing that. So it's just keep the stuff, because you don't know what, and especially right now, going to have to be creating soon to fix stuff at our homes, or, you know, work on our vehicles or whatever that we have to do. So
Yeah, we thought our great grandfathers had it hard in depression. Well, wake up, people! It's coming back, and we're gonna do it all over again. Good
And
deal, huh?
that was one thing that the native cultures, all the folks I've ever met, even, that those non-practicing Indians, I would say, that they're just normal people, but they're not, doing they might go to a powwow once a year or something, but they just living this way, right? I can't necessarily say they sold out. They just found it easier and more convenient. That's all. But so these folks would, put up just, like a white man, where the native folk are like, they still can, when times are hard, they can still figure out a way to get by.
Yes, absolutely.
It's inbred in them somehow. And they, if something breaks or they can go out, they know how to survive. And
Yes.
in these days and times, you never know when that's going to come in handy,
Mhm.
Well, my granny told me this, and this is how they got by. And so they tell, guess what? The old stories, and the old stories of not just the natives, but also of the pioneers too.
Mhm. Yeah.
And not
And luckily in our group, in our tribe, I know there's a lot of people in our tribe that know different stories from their ancestors and grandparents that are willing to like share the knowledge, like if you need to know how to do something, I guarantee you there's somebody in this group you can reach out to that's going to give you the information on how to get it done.
Speaking of stories, David, you got your story picked out?
That was a pretty good segue, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I was trying to lead you in there, David.
That's right. That's right. And being a
team
good
effort here.
Being a good host and moderator guy, I'm here. I could pick up on that.
Well,
everybody
I didn't mean to sort of take over the conversation, but there are questions in my head.
No, this is real. This is. I mean, I'm so glad that Linda came, is because we toss these things back and forth, and now this is a new. She's bringing new ideas and fresh stuff to the table.
Oh, thank you, Robert. Thank you.
Not that we might have been getting old and stale here, but but you freshened us all up.
You speak, dude.
David said, "Talk for yourself."
You speak for yourself now.
All right, where am I going? You got to tell me where I'm going. I can get this ready.
Okay, I had this all planned out. Let me find the page.
Everybody else is talking. We got Cowboy Gus, who's one of the best mule trainers there ever was, and horse trainers and Lucky Smith, who rode with a hackamore and trained horses too. We got Scotty Boy. He just jumped on him and rode him out. By gosh.
Page 298.
298. I love when we get in these horse discussions, because I'm like, I had a riding stable and I broke and trained horses. Shoot, I've been riding a horse forever. So I'm like, anybody ever wants to talk horses, I'm all in. I did it all. I can still do it. I'm still as tough as nails. 298. Okay.
Well, Robert, I might be calling you because we're getting a new horse, and I haven't had horses since I was like 22 years old. So I might need some refresher on my memory.
Okay, you just let me know.
Yeah.
Man who married the moon. Is that it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I have gotten it. And yes, you call me, let me know, Linda, at any time, and I will talk you through it and let you know all the information that I've forgotten more than most people will ever know.
I say that all the time.
Well, yeah, I know. I remember an old guy, Vic Kowalski. Man, that guy, he knew so much about horses. Oh, and there was
I'm probably going to hit G up too. Be like, Gaia, I'm sorry. Can you help me?
Yeah, Gaia, she's got horses too. Yeah, well, a lot of our community is all about horses or had horses at one time point in time. It's pretty cool. If Gaia lived closer to me, I'd load up and haul over there and we'd all go riding together. But I think she's pretty far away. So I think she's over by Washington or somewhere. I'm not sure exactly. I know she's farther west, I think. But anyway, if I'm wrong, please correct me. Okay, we're all set here. I think I got it. Man Who Married the Moon.
I don't think I've read this one.
Oh no,
because
no,
it
you
was
have
one
not.
of those. It's one of those long ones. It's about 6 pages long in the book. So here we go, eh?
Yes.
All right. Let me get a sip of coffee and say thank you to Bob out there, our resident AI. It's been, showing up that we've got bad bandwidth out there and low stuff. It keeps showing up on my screen too. So, all right. 3, 2, 1. The Man Who Married the Moon is Leta Pueblo. This story, prepared for a popular magazine at the turn of the century, blends Pueblo folklore with the late Victorian language and sensibilities. Corn maidens are both malevolent, as in this tale, and beneficent spirits who give themselves as food so that the people may live. Long before the first Spaniards came to New Mexico, Isleta stood where it stands today, on a lava ridge that defies the gnawing current of the Rio Grande. In those far days, Nachuruchu, the bluish light of dawn, dwelt in Isleta and was a leader of his people. A weaver by trade, his rude loom hung from the dark rafters of his room, and in it he wove the strong black mantas or robes, like those which are the dress of the Pueblo women to this day. Besides being very wise in medicine, Nachuruchu was young and tall and strong and handsome. All the girls of the village thought it a shame that he did not care to take a wife. For him, the shyest dimples played. For him, the whitest teeth flashed out as the owners passed him in the plaza, but he had no eye for them. Then, in the custom of the Tiwa, bashful fingers worked wondrous fringed shirts of buckskin or gay all sheaths, which found their way to his house by unknown messengers. But Nachuruchu paid no more attention to the gifts than to the smiles and just kept weaving and weaving. Such mantas were never seen in the land of the Tiwan before or since. Two of his admirers were sisters who called in Tiwa language, Iha Cha Tu Richu Aman, the Yellow Cord Maidens. They were both young and pretty, but they had the evil road, or were witches, possessed of a magical power, which they always used for ill. When all the other girls gave up, discouraged at the Nachuruchu's indifference, the Elkhorn maidens kept coming day after day, trying to win his notice. At last, the matter became so annoying to Nachuruchu that he hired the deep-voiced town crier to go through all the streets and announced that in 4 days, Nachuruchu would choose a wife. For dippers to take water from the big earthen jars, the Tiwa used them as they use today, queer little omats made of a gourd. But Nachuruchu, being a great medicine man and very rich, had a dipper of pure pearl, shaped like the gourds, but wonderfully precious. On the 4th day, proclaimed the crier, Nachuruchu will hang his pearl omat at his door. When every girl who will marry may throw a handful of cornmeal at it. And she whose meal is so well ground that it sticks to the Omat, she shall be the wife of Nachuruchu. When this strange news came rolling down the still evening air, there was a great scampering of little moccasined feet. The girls ran out from hundreds of gray adobe houses to catch every word, and when the crier had passed on, they went back into the storerooms and began to ransack that which had been passed on, and the corn bins for the biggest, evenest, and most perfect ears. Shelling the corn, shelling the choicest, even took a few handfuls of kernel to the sloping metate, and with the mano or handstone, scrubbed the blue grist up and down until the hard corn was a soft blue meal. All the next day and the next and the next, they ground it over and over and over again until it grew finer than ever flour was before. And every girl felt sure that her meal would stick to the Omat of the handsome young weaver. The yellow corn maidens worked hardest of all. Day and night for 4 days they ground and ground with all the magic spells they knew. Now in those far off days, the moon had not gone into the sky to live, but was a maiden of Visleta. And a very beautiful girl she was, but blind in one eye. She had long admired Nachuruchu, but was always too maidenly to try to attract his attention as the other girls had done. And at the time when the crier made his proclamation, she happened to be away at her father's ranch. It was only upon the 4th day that she returned to town. And in a few moments, the girls were to go with their meal to test it upon the magic dipper. The 2 yellow corn maidens were just coming from their house as she passed, and they told her what was to be done. They were very confident of success and hoped to pain her. They laughed derisively as she went running to her home. By this time, a long file of girls was coming to Nachuruchu's house, outside whose door hung the pearl Omat. Each girl carried in her hand a little jar of meal, and as they passed the door, one by one, each took from the jar a handful and threw it against the magic dipper. But each time the meal dropped to the ground and left the pure pearl undimmed and radiant as ever. At last, the yellow corn maidens, who had waited to watch the failure of the others, as they came where they could see Nachuruchu sitting at his loom, they called, "Ah, here we have the meal that will stick." And each threw a handful at the Omat, but it did not stick at all. And still, from his seat, Nachuruchu could see in the shell's mirror-like surface all that went on outside. The yellow corn maidens were very angry, and instead of passing on as the others had done, they stood there and kept throwing and throwing at the Omat, which smiled back at them with undiminished luster. Just then, last of all, came the moon with a single handful of meal, which she had hastily ground. The 2 sisters were in a fine rage by this time and mocked her, saying, "Ho, Polly, oh, moon, you poor thing. We are very sorry for you. Here we have been grinding our meal for 4 days, and still it will not stick. And we did not tell you till today. How then can you ever hope to win Nachuruchu? Pooh, you silly little thing." But the moon paid no attention whatsoever to their taunts. Drawing back her little dimpled hand, she threw the meal gently against the pearl Omat. And so fine was it ground that every tiniest bit of it clung to the polished shell, and not a particle fell to the ground. When Nachuruchu saw that, he rose up quickly from his loom and came and took the moon by the hand, saying, "You are she who shall be my wife. You shall never want for anything, since I have very much." And he gave her many beautiful mantas and cotton wraps and fat boots of buckskin that wrap around beautiful mantas, and cotton wraps and as the wife of a rich chief, but the yellow corn maidens, who had seen it all, went away vowing vengeance on the moon. Nacharuchu and his sweet moon wife were very happy together. There was no other such housekeeper in all the pueblo as she, and no other hunter brought home so much buffalo meat from the vast plains. To the east are so many antelope and black-tailed deer and jackrabbits from the manzanos, as did the Nacharuchu, but constantly he was saying to her, Moon wife, beware of the yellow corn maidens, for they have the evil road and will try to do you harm, but you must always refuse to do whatever they propose. And always the young wife promised. And one day the yellow corn maidens came to the house and said, Friend Nacharuchu, we are going to the Llano, the plain, to gather amole. Amole is a soapy root that the pueblos use for washing. Will you not let your wife go with us? Oh, yes, she may go, said Nacharuchu, but taking her aside, he said, now be sure that while you are with them, you refuse whatever they may propose. The moon promised and started away with the yellow corn maidens. In those days, there was only a thick forest of cottonwoods, where now the smiling vineyards, gardens, and orchards of Isla are spread. And to reach the Llano, the three women had to go through the forest. In the very center of it, they came to a deep pozo, a square well, with steps at one side leading down to the water's edge. Ah, said the yellow corn maidens, how hot and thirsty is our walk. Come, let us get a drink of water. But the moon, remembering her husband's words, said politely that she did not wish to drink. They urged in vain, but at last, looking down in the pozo, they called, oh, moon friend, come and look in this still water and see how pretty you are. The moon, you must know, has always been just as fond of looking at herself in the water as she is to this very day. And forgetting Nacharuchu's warning, she came to the brink and looked down upon her fair reflection. But at that very moment, the two witch sisters pushed her head forward into the pozo and drowned her. And they filled the well with earth and went away as happy as wicked hearts could be. As the sun crept along the adobe floor, closer and closer to his seat, Nacharuchu began to look oftener from his loom to the door. When the shadows were very long, he sprang suddenly to his feet and walked to the house of the yellow corn maidens with long, long strides. Yellow corn maidens, he asked them very sternly, where is my little wife? Why, isn't she at home? Asked the wicked sisters, as if greatly surprised. She got enough of Molly long before we did. Ah, groaned Nacharuchu within himself. It is as I thought. They have done her ill. But without a word to them, he turned on his heel and went away. From that hour, all went wrong, as Isleta, for Nacharuchu held the well-being of all his people, even unto life and death. Paying no attention to what was going on about him, he sat motionless upon the topmost crosspiece of the estufa, the kiva or sacred council chamber, the ladder, the highest point in all the town, with his head bowed upon his hands. He sat for days, never speaking, never moving. The children who played along the streets looked up with awe to the motionless figure and ceased their boisterous play. The old men looked, shook their heads gravely, and muttered, we are in evil times, for Nacharuchu is mourning and will not be comforted, and there is no more rain, so that our crops are dying in the fields. What shall we do? At last, all the counselors met together and decided that there must be another effort made to find the lost wife. It was true that the great Nacharuchu had searched for her in vain. And the people had helped him, but perhaps someone else might be more fortunate. So they took some of the sacred smoking weed wrapped in a corn husk and went to the eagle, who has the sharpest eyes in the world. Giving him the sacred gift, they said, "Eagle friend, we see Nacharuchu is in great trouble, for he has lost his moon wife. Come, search for her, we pray you, to discover it, if she be alive or dead." So the eagle took the offering and smoked the smoke prayer. And then he went winging up into the sky. Higher and higher he rose, and in great upward circles, while his keen eyes noted every stick and stone and animal on the face of all the world. But with all his eyes, he could see nothing of the lost wife. And at last he came back sadly and said, "People, friends, I went up to where I could see the whole world, but I could not find her." Then the people went with an offering to the coyote, whose nose is sharpest in all the world, and besought him to try and find the moon. The coyote smoked the smoke prayer and started off with his nose to the ground, trying to find her tracks. He trotted all over the earth, but at last he too came back without finding what he sought. Then the troubled people got the badger to search, for he is the best of all the beasts at digging. It was he whom the Trews employed to dig the caves in which the people first dwelt when they came to this world. The badger trotted and pawed and dug everywhere, but could not find the moon, and he came home very sad. Then they asked the osprey, who could see furthest underwater, and he sailed high above the lakes and rivers in the world till he could count the pebbles and the fish in them, but he too failed to discover the lost moon. By this time the crops were dead and seared in the fields, and the thirsty animals walked crying along the river. Scarcely could the people themselves dig deep enough to find water to keep them alive. They were at a loss, but at last they thought, "We will go to the Pahakitaya, the water goose grandfather," which means turkey buzzard, who can find the dead. For surely she is dead, or the others would have found her. So they went to him and besought him. The turkey buzzard wept when he saw Nacharuchu still sitting there upon the ladder, and said, "Truly it is sad for our great friend, but for me, I am afraid to go, since they who are more mighty than I have already failed. Yet I will try." And spreading his broad wings, he went climbing up the spiral ladder to the sky. Higher he wheeled and higher, till at last not even the eagle could see him. Up and up until the sun began to singe his head. And not even the eagle had ever been so high. He cried with pain, but still kept mounting until he was so close to the sun that all the feathers were burned from his head and neck, but he could see nothing. And at last, frantic with the burning, he came wheeling downward. When he got back to the Yestufa, the kiva, where all the people were waiting, they saw that his head and neck had been burned bare of feathers. And from that day to this, the feathers would never grow out again. "And did you see nothing?" they all asked, when they had bathed his burns. "Nothing," he answered, "except that when I was halfway down, I saw in the middle of yon cottonwood forest a little mound covered with all the beautiful flowers in the world." "Oh," cried Nacharuchu, speaking for the first time, "go, friend, and bring me one flower from the very middle of the mound." Off flew the buzzer in a few minutes, returned with a little white flower. Nacharuchu took it, and descending from the ladder in silence, walked solemnly to his house, while all the wondering people followed. When Nacharuchu came inside his home once more, he took a new manta and spread it in the middle of the room. Laying the wee white flower tenderly in its center, he put another manta above it. Then, dressing himself in the splendid buckskin suit that the lost wife had made him, and taking in his right hand the sacred Guji rattle, he seated himself at the head of the mantas and sang, Shi na shu nam aya aya aya, seeking her, their way, their way. When he had finished the song, all could see that the flower had began to grow, so that it lifted the upper manta a little. Again he sang, shaking his gourd, and still the flower kept growing. Again and again he sang, and when he had finished for the fourth time, it was plain all that human form lay between the two mantas. And when he sang his song the fifth time, the form sat up and moved. Tenderly he lifted away the upper cloth, and there sat his sweet moon wife, fairer than ever and alive as before. For 4 days the people had danced and sang in the public square. Nacharuchu was happy again, and now the rain began to fall. The choked earth drank and was glad and green, and the dead crops came to life. When his wife told him what the witch sisters had done, he was very angry. And that day he made a beautiful hoop to play the hoop game. He painted it and put many strings across it and decorated with beaded buckskin. Now, he said, the wicked yellow corn maidens will come to congratulate you and will pretend not to know where you were. You must not speak of that, but invite them to go out and play a game with you. In a day or two, the witch sisters did come with deceitful words, and the moon invited them to go out and play a game. They went up to the edge of the Ilano, and there she let them get a glimpse of the pretty hoop. Oh, give us that, moon friend, they teased, but she refused. At last, however, she said, well, we will play the hoop game. I will stand here and you there, and if, when I roll it to you, you catch it before it falls upon its side, you may have it. So the witch sisters stood a little way down the hill, and she rolled the bright hoop. As it came trundling toward them, both grasped it at the same instant, and lo, instead of the yellow corn maidens, there came 2 great snakes with tears rolling down their ugly faces. The moon came and put upon their heads a little of the pollen of the corn blossom, still used by Pueblo snake charmers to tame them, and a pinch of sacred meal for their food. Now, she said, you have the reward of treacherous friends. Here shall be your home among these rocks and cliffs forever. But you must never be found upon the prairie, and you must never bite a person. Remember, you are women and must be gentle. And then the moon went home to her husband, and they were very happy together. As for the sister snakes, they still dwell where she bade them, and never venture away, though sometimes the people bring them to their houses to catch mice, for these snakes never hurt a person. Published by Charles F. Loomis in St. Nicholas magazine in 1897. In view of Pueblo esteemed for snakes, the sisters' punishment was a mild one. Some Pueblo tribes view snakes as rain bringers, and the heroes of Pueblo myths sometimes marry snake maidens, as in the Hopi Boy and the Sun. According to a government report of 1900, the superstitious regard of these Indians for snakes, inasmuch as they hold a prominent part in religious rites, protects them and renders them abundant among the villages. A snake, on being found in the Pueblo, is merely carried off on sticks and laid outside of a man's immediate range. Notice that when the wicked corn maidens were turned into snakes, they became gentler and kinder beings. The end.
Nice story.
Very
I really
good.
like that.
Very good. Yes.
It's one of those long ones I've been, holding back because it was a little long, but it's a very interesting story though, to where
is.
how Nacharuchus, he was so respected within the community, not only for his work, but his kindness and everything, that the villagers and all of the peoples went to so much trouble to help him.
Mhm.
They did everything that they could, and because they liked, the moon as well.
Mhm.
And so it's interesting in these stories, the people asked Eagle and Coyote and, and even the turkey buzzard. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
there are different stories about how the buzzard lost his hair. I like this one better than the other ones I've heard. But so let me tell a quick story while I'm shuffling the cards, because I know
Oh,
you're
yeah.
going to ask me.
Yeah, I know it. I was gonna say, well, you got a card for us tonight? You know how that we end the night with a card for the collective, and it's usually a good one, and it always seems to reflect what we've been talking about somehow or some way.
Yeah,
The way it is.
it's been uncanny over the many times that I've done this.
Yep.
It freaks me out sometimes. I gotta honestly say it just like holy crap, criminy.
Well, I know, like that one time when we did like bugs or something, and it was all bugs, spider and
I know.
grasshopper and whatever. It's like, wow.
It's been interesting. Absolutely.
Well, while you're shuffling, I want to say hi to everybody. We had a lot of people in here tonight. We got AFs in the house, Scratches in the house, Scotty Boy, Deborah Sloan, Courtney, MC, and Jules. I think some of them been in. Nina the Mystic came along to join us tonight. Big Al was here for a while. He's probably still here somewhere. And Julie Stowe came to join us. She was a little late, but that's all right because she made it in time for the great story. I know Chloe, she says I'm here, and Isby's here too, who will be doing his show on Thursday. Remember King Og, a lost book of King Og, and gee, I hope I didn't miss anybody here. But anyway, we had a lot of people. We had Cowboy Gus in here earlier. He's probably Nina Fetty. Gaza Cav, he was here in Max Vision. And oh yeah. Well, anyway, I think I got everybody. I'm just going back through the line. Yeah. But thank you all for coming. And joining us tonight. I hope you all enjoyed the information and I mean, it's just mind-blowing. It gets you going. And remember, don't forget to send us an email if and ask questions if you got more questions, because sometimes you may have answers to our questions. Like Nina, she's always talking about the stuff. She knows a lot. And I got this cool book. I got to read it now. It's called Land of the Dakota. So yeah, anyway, yeah, it's going to make me want to read that book a little more and find out about the people out here. So anyway, what do you got for us?
All right. Well, one is another story about turkey buzzard. And so some stories say that, that the turkey buzzard was so proud of himself that, he was a stately bird, because they are really big and huge wingspans and can glide forever in the sky. And so because they felt so superior to all the other animals, when things came up to eat, they were like, well, no, there was an offering of this. No, I'm too good for that. Well, here's an offering of potatoes and acorns. No, I'm too good for that. Well, what about this? No, I'm too good for that. So Turkey Buzzard just, pranced around and was beginning to get a little hungry. And he looked up at the sky and said, Creator, I'm such a stately bird. I deserve something stately to eat. And so Creator said, yeah, sure, right. And so as he got so hungry, his plumage changed. He was out lying, about to die in the desert, being baked by the sun. So all of his plumage was baked and turned dark. And then he was so hungry that he ate a dead rabbit. And from that point on, Creator said, you have overstepped your boundary. There are all these wonderful things to eat on this planet, and you turned them all down. So from now on, you will dine only on dead carcasses. And so from putting their head in and out of the carcass, that they lost all their hair on and around their neck, which really does make sense. So, and from that point on, because the turkey buzzard was such a proud and full of himself. But anyway, so that's another story. I like the idea in the story that he flew so high to find the moon that he, that's a whole lot better story to me. So anyway, so two cards, and they're both upside down. One is turkey, and when you look at the turkey, interestingly enough, let's see, bad lighting. He looks sort of like the turkey buzzard. I went, what? No way. So we got the turkey and not the buzzard. And the other is bear, both upside down for some reason. But anyway, they want me to start with turkey. Turkey, as I recall, just filling in time at the moment, is one of those, is a giveaway. When people were hungry and starving, turkey is a giveaway.
We all like turkey for Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
he sacrificed himself, didn't he? The turkey sacrificed himself so people could eat.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So turkey, number 31 in the book, page 161, is a giveaway. Ho, brother turkey, so freely you give of everything that you are, so others may truly live. Turkey is actually thought to be the giveaway eagle or the South eagle of many native peoples. The philosophy of giveaway was practiced by many tribes. Simply stated, it is the deep and abiding recognition of the sacrifices of both self and others. People in modern day society, who have many times more than they need, should study the noble turkey who sacrifices itself so that we may live. In turkey's death, we have our own life. Honor turkey. Spectators unfamiliar with the cultural phenomena of the potlatch or giveaway ceremony are often mystified by it. A tribal member may gladly give away all he or she owns and do without in order to help the people. In present day urban life, we are taught to acquire and get ahead. The person with the most toys wins the game. In some cultures, no one can win the game unless the whole of the people's needs are met. Now, that's a really important message right there. In some cultures, no one can win the game unless the whole of the people's needs are met. A person who claims more than his or her share is looked upon as selfish or crazy or both. The poor, the aged, and the feeble have honor. The person who gives away the most and carries the burdens of the people is one of the most respected. Turkey was the medicine of many saints and mystics. Celebrate if you have turkey medicine. Your virtues are many. You have transcended self. You act and react on the behalf of others. You aspire to help those who need help. This is not out of the same sense of self-righteousness, moralism, or religious guilt. Help and sustenance is given by Turkey out of the realization that all life is sacred. It is knowing that the Great Spirit resides within all people. It is the acknowledgement that what you do for others, you do for yourself. Turkey medicine rests in true ego, in enlightenment. Doing unto others and feeding the people is the message of all true spiritual systems. Depending on how Turkey is aspected in your cards, you are being given a gift. This gift should be it could be spiritual, material, or even intellectual. The gift may be great or small, but it is never insignificant. Congratulations, you may have just won the lottery, or the gift may be of a beautiful sunset or the smell of a fragrant flower. Now it's upside down. So contrary, there are several aspects to pulling the Gobbler card in the reverse position. Are you gobbling up anything and everything out of fear of lack? Are you holding on too tight and refusing to let go of a dime for charity? It could be that the Scrooge in you has grown unaccustomed to the miserly aspects of living. If not, you might look at the possibility that you are fearful of spending money at this time. Now, that makes sense for a lot of us, but just going on. Another aspect of contrary gobbling is the idea that the world owes you something and you do not need to recycle the energy. The buck stops here may only mean that it stops in your bank account. On all levels of this contrary message, the keynote is that generosity of spirit is being neglected. This can be towards self or towards others. They want me to read that last line again. On all levels of this contrary message, the keynote is that generosity of spirit is being neglected. Remember, never give to receive. That is manipulation. Giving is without regret and with a joyful heart, or the giveaway has lost its true meaning.
I agree with that. You know, when I was younger, I give and I would always expect. And then after a while, I've gotten into that, you know, there was one day, I don't know how it happened, but I realized that if you give something away, just give it and don't expect anything.
Yeah, no take backs.
Yes. Well, you know, I mean,
I know, but as kids, but yeah.
Yeah. But then don't expect anything. And, you know, someday the karma will come around and you'll get it back.
I never understood why they called it Indian giving. They used to always, if you did that, they'd be like, giver.
That's true, because that's the reverse of what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. That's a good point. I hadn't thought that. Good observation, Miss Linda. Mm-hmm. All right, now, so the next one is bear. And for some reason, I've been thinking about bear the last little while here. So, bear, invite me into the cave where silence surrounds the answers you gave. Bear is introspection. The strength of bear medicine is in the power of introspection. It lies in the West on the great medicine wheel of life. Bear seeks honey or the sweetness of truth within the hollow of an old tree. In the winter, when the ice queen reigns and the face of death is upon the earth, bear enters the womb cave to hibernate, to digest the year's experience. It is said that our goals reside in the West also. To accomplish the goals and dreams that we carry, the art of introspection is necessary. I love it. It rhymes. To become like bear and enter the safety of the womb cave, we must attune ourselves to the energies of the eternal mother and receive nourishment from from the placenta of the great void. The great void is the place where all solutions and answers live in harmony with the questions that fill our realities. They want me to read that again. The great void is the place where all solutions and answers live in harmony. They live in harmony with the questions that fill our realities. If we choose to believe that there are many questions to life, we must also believe that the answers to these questions reside within us. Each and every being has the capacity to quiet the mind, enter the silence, and know. K-N-O-W. Many tribes have called this space of inner knowing the dream lodge, where the death of the illusion of physical reality overlays the expansiveness of eternity. Now, this is some deep stuff with Bear. It is in the dream lodge that our ancestors sit in council and advise us regarding alternative pathways that lead us to our goals. This is the power of Bear. Female receptive energy that for centuries has allowed visionaries, mystics, and shamans to prophecy is contained in this very special Bear energy. In India, the cave symbolizes the cave of Brahma. Brahma's cave is considered to be the pineal gland that sits in the center of the four lobes of the brain. If one were to imagine an overview over the head, the top of it would be a circle. The south would be the forehead, the north, the back of the skull, the west would be the right brain, and the east, the left. Bear is in the west, the intuitive side, the right brain. To hibernate, Bear travels to the cave, which is in the center of the four lobes where the pineal gland resides. In the cave, Bear seeks answers while he or she is dreaming or hibernating. Bear is then reborn in the spring like the opening of spring flowers. In choosing Bear, the power of knowing has invited you to enter the silence and become acquainted with the dream lodge so that your goals may become concrete realities. This is the strength of Bear. Now, contrary, if you've drawn Bear reversed, your internal dialogue may have confused your perception of your true goal. In seeking answers or advice from others, you may have placed your own feelings and your own knowing aside. The time has come to regain your authority, for no one knows better than yourself what is proper and timely for your evolution. Reclaim the power of knowing. Find joy in the silence and richness of the mother's womb. Allow the thoughts of confusion to be laid to rest as clarity emerges from the west. Nurturing your dreams as Mother Earth nourishes us all. Bear in the contrary position is teaching you that only through being your own advisor can you attain your true goals. Anything less than the doing of that which gives you the most joy is denial. To achieve happiness, you must know yourself. To know yourself is to know your body, your mind, and your spirit. Use your strengths to overcome your weaknesses and know that both are necessary in your evolution. Journey with Bear to the quietness of your cave and hibernate in silence. Dream your dreams and own them.
I like that one. That kind of goes with
That
the
was beautiful.
know yourself and do deny yourself, but give away with the turkey thing. And yep, all fits together. I get it.
Yep, it does. That was pretty beautiful. I like that. I was smiling the whole time going, yep.
Thank you, Creator, for the lovely messages. And when I'm talking about stuff on my channel, I refer to Bear a lot because they're in that hibernation, in the silence, you know, and a lot of people still don't get it. Of all the things to discuss, there's one simple thing when asking a question to the universe. Make it simple. And if you are going to go into your little meditation, into the hibernation, then don't ask what is the meaning of life. It's 43 or something, right? No. How can I best understand my meaning of life? Or state it in such a way that you can expound upon that question later on. But ask a simple something to get the ball rolling. If you ask for a complex, ask a question that's complex, you might never understand it. So just pick a part of what you want to know, and they'll kind of walk you along like in baby steps so that you will get the bigger picture. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Well, anyway, that's all good. David, you got another show tonight?
Maybe.
Maybe. And
I'm
Linda,
not
what do you got going? You're gonna start doing shows.
I've got I've got my channel set up on YouTube and Odyssey, and it's been a busy week this week. I've had stuff like my daughter's soccer games, and I've had all kinds of stuff. So I am right now planning a show, my first show. So I'm not quite sure what date. I got to look at everybody's schedule. I'm not trying to, we're all fighting for times here. So
yeah.
it doesn't seem like too much goes on Mondays.
Yes.
So I might do it on a Monday afternoon.
I know.
But,
I always stick, ever notice I always stick with the same time, 9 o'clock Central, always at the same time. You can look at the same time, same channel every day of the week.
But I think I'm gonna do a lot of stuff like you do, Robert, doing the shorts and stuff like that. I'm gonna do a few shorts here and there and pop them in.
And that's always good, because people lose their attention spans really short, and they'll tend to watch a short story that takes 5 or 10 minutes. But if you get to be 2 hours like we're doing,
but we got lovely people that love us. They have stuck in there and listened to our stories, and
that it's great if they can stick through the whole thing. But then I take it, I chop it up, and then in probably a month or two, I'll take that story or whatever good part it was, and I'll put it on as a short, and then they'll get to watch it again, and it's like a whole nother show.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, you know what short for me is about 4 hours.
The first time I ever went on with David, it was the night I was sick. I didn't feel good. I was running a fever and I could not sleep, and I was restless. And I was talking to Chloe, and she goes, "Oh, Hawkeye's going on." And I was like, "Oh, I'll pop over there. Maybe it'll help me start relaxing." We talked for 5 hours, all of us, a group of us. It was wonderful.
It was great. I had a great time. We touched all kinds of stuff, and I've been in your neighborhood.
Yeah. So,
well,
it was
great.
And
that's the thing, is I remember I remember we got done with the show, and then I popped in and I said hello, and then I got up in the morning and I said, "Hey, I'm going to work."
I'm going to bed.
It was so funny. I always get a kick out of that. But I can't wait to see your first show. Do something. Isby's getting ready. He's gonna put out some stuff too. And the thing is,
David Barry's working on my intro, outro. He's gonna help me with that. But right now, I'm not worried about it. I'm just gonna do it like this. This is it. What you got? What I got? Yeah,
that's right.
And then Nina gave me some suggestions for a site to use to do my own stuff, so everybody's kind of helping me out. But my channel is Dancing Deer Mojo on Odyssey, and okay. It's because my name's Dancing Deer and I got my own mojo, so I want you guys to come get some of it, hang out, listen to my shows, ask me questions. I want to have some of the Soul Tribe members come on, talk about themselves and their experiences. So
and my suggestion is pick a time and stick with it, and whatever, if it's once a week or whatever time it is, that seems to always work best, because that way people know after a while, they go, "Oh yeah, he's gonna be on today."
Yep, absolutely.
So anyway, we got to get going. I got to go to work in the morning, and David's got to get ready so he can do a show all night. And
Maybe.
I'm sure, maybe, right? Okay. Well, and remember, everybody, be the frequency you want to receive. I love you all, and it was
Good
a
night,
great
guys.
time.
Love you.
Thank
Yep.
you, Linda. Cheers,
ya.
everybody.
You're welcome, David. Thank you.
See you the next time. Same bat place, same bat channel. Remember, be the frequency you want to receive. I love you all. Peace, everybody.
Cheers.
And there we go. We are out.